It was a cold and rainy evening, and I found myself driving alone on a desolate highway. The dim glow of my headlights was the only thing cutting through the darkness. I was tired and eager to find a place to rest, so when I spotted the familiar golden arches of a McDonald's sign in the distance, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. As I pulled into the empty parking lot, I noticed a lone figure standing under the flickering streetlight. It was a clown, his face painted in a twisted grin, and he wore the unmistakable red and yellow jumpsuit of Ronald McDonald. Something about him sent shivers down my spine, but I dismissed it as my tired mind playing tricks on me. I stepped out of my car, the rain soaking me instantly. The clown's eyes followed my every move, his stare penetrating deep into my soul. I walked towards the entrance, but as I approached, the clown's grin grew wider, almost impossibly so. It was as if his painted smile was stretching beyond the limits of his face. Unease washed over me, but I pushed the feeling aside, determined to find warmth and shelter. As I entered the restaurant, I immediately noticed the eerie silence. The usual sounds of chatter and laughter were absent, replaced by an unsettling stillness. The lights flickered overhead, casting strange shadows across the room. I made my way to the counter, where a young woman stood, her face pale and her eyes filled with fear. She whispered, almost inaudibly, "Don't stay here. Leave before it's too late." Confusion consumed me, but before I could ask any questions, a deep, distorted laughter echoed through the building. I turned around to see the clown standing just outside the glass doors, his grin now stretching impossibly wide. Panic seized me, and I rushed towards the exit, desperate to escape the nightmare unfolding before me. But as I reached for the door handle, it wouldn't budge. It was as if an invisible force was holding it shut. I pounded on the glass, screaming for help, but my cries fell on deaf ears. Turning back to face the room, I saw that the restaurant had transformed. The once familiar surroundings were now distorted and grotesque. The walls were covered in bloodstains, and the tables were adorned with decaying food. The air grew heavy with a putrid smell, making it hard to breathe. And there, amidst the nightmare, stood the clown. His painted face was now a grotesque mask, his eyes hollow and filled with malice. He approached me slowly, each step accompanied by an eerie circus tune playing from nowhere. As he drew closer, I could see his gnarled hands reaching out towards me, their long, sharp nails glinting in the dim light. I tried to run, but my feet were rooted to the spot. The clown's laughter grew louder, echoing through the room, blending with my screams of terror. Just as the clown's hand was about to touch me, I jolted awake, covered in a cold sweat. It took me a moment to realize I was safe in my own bed, the nightmare just a figment of my imagination. But even as I reassured myself, I couldn't shake the feeling that the clown's presence was still lingering, waiting in the shadows, ready to haunt my dreams once more. Days turned into weeks, and the memory of that night at the McDonald's faded. I convinced myself that it was just a product of exhaustion and an overactive imagination. Life resumed its normalcy, until one evening when I found myself on the same desolate highway. As I drove, the rain began to pour, creating a symphony of drops against the windshield. My heart skipped a beat when I spotted the familiar golden arches emerging from the mist. The McDonald's sign stood before me like a beacon of refuge in the storm. Reluctantly, I pulled into the parking lot, memories of the previous encounter with the clown resurfacing in my mind. The rain poured relentlessly, obscuring my view of the surroundings. I hesitated, debating whether to seek shelter or continue driving through the night. But the allure of warmth and a hot meal won over my apprehensions. I grabbed my umbrella and made my way towards the restaurant, trying to convince myself that lightning wouldn't strike twice. As I approached the entrance, a flicker of unease danced through my body, but I dismissed it as mere paranoia. I pushed open the door and entered the McDonald's, hoping for a lively atmosphere to erase the lingering dread. However, I was greeted by an unsettling silence. The usual sounds of conversations and laughter were absent, replaced by an eerie quietude that sent a shiver down my spine. The lights above me flickered sporadically, casting eerie shadows that seemed to move on their own accord. My footsteps echoed in the empty space as I made my way towards the counter. I could feel eyes watching me, unseen gazes burning into the back of my skull. As I approached the counter, I noticed a familiar face. It was the same young woman from before, her face still pale, her eyes filled with terror. She stared at me for a moment, her lips quivering, before she leaned in and whispered, "Run! Get out of here while you still can!" Before I could respond, a cacophony of distorted laughter erupted from the darkness. The sound was bone-chilling, sending a surge of adrenaline through my veins. I turned around to see the clown, standing just beyond the glass doors, his grotesque grin stretching impossibly wide. Fear gripped me, but this time I was determined not to be trapped in the nightmare. I bolted towards the exit, pushing against the door with all my might. To my relief, it swung open, allowing me to escape into the pouring rain. But as I stepped outside, the world around me twisted and contorted. The parking lot transformed into a nightmarish circus, with warped rides and tents towering over me. The rain turned into a torrential downpour, blending with my own terrified screams. I ran, my footsteps splashing through puddles as I desperately sought an escape. The laughter of the clown pursued me, growing louder and more deranged with each passing moment. The once familiar highway became a labyrinth, with each turn leading me deeper into the clown's realm of horror. My strength waned, and my legs threatened to give way, but I pushed forward, driven by an instinct for survival. Just when I thought I couldn't go on, a burst of light broke through the darkness. It was a service station, its neon sign shining like a beacon of salvation. With my last ounce of energy, I stumbled towards the station and burst through the door. The warmth and the bright fluorescent lights embraced me, offering respite from the nightmare that pursued me. I collapsed onto the floor, gasping for breath, grateful for the safety that had eluded me for so long. As I lay there, my mind haunted by the memories of the clown's twisted grin and haunting laughter, I couldn't help but wonder if this ordeal was truly over. Would the clown return, lurking in the shadows of my dreams, waiting for another chance to drag me into his sinister circus of terror? Are you prepared to embark on a haunting journey delving into the depths of nightmare memoirs? Will you dare to uncover the chilling secrets that lurk in the shadows? Join us and become a fearless seeker of all things spooky. Subscribe and like if you dare to traverse the shadowy depths with us.